Hello, hello, everybody. I've got Miss Amy Anderson here with me, and we're going to be talking all about how she went from a place of feeling stuck in restriction when it comes to food and just not feeling comfortable in her own body to being in a place where she's found real balance with food, being able to enjoy things like chocolate at any time during the day. We'll talk a little bit about that, being able to really have consistent eating times and having really great morning and evening routines and just having more energy and joy throughout the day. So we're going to talk all about how she did that in just a few short months. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here with me. How are you?
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, so Miss Amy, I'd love to know, like, for you, where are you coming from right now, by the way? And what is it that brought you to Rediscover You Free? How did you hear about us?
So yeah, I am in Northern Ireland just now, and I Instagram, I guess. So a friend of mine who has been doing the part of the program with Kelsey had shared one of your posts, I think, and
Mhm.
I sort of clicked onto it and just kind of started following you from there. And then you reached out, and then we set up a call, and then I joined the program, and yeah.
It was really quick. Like,
Yeah, it
it
was
was,
quick. It was quick. Yeah.
you're like, I've known you maybe a month. I don't know, but like,
Yeah.
I'm ready. So for you,
Yeah.
I'd love to know, like, obviously you had just met me, but there was something where you're like, I'm ready to draw a line in the sand. I am tired of this. Where were you before joining the program?
Um, so I joined back at the start of February.
February.
Right. So I think partly there's that like New Year kind of thing going on at that time of year. But just I suppose I was in a place where I just felt quite stuck. I think I had allowed myself to believe that change wasn't possible for me. Like I was, which is something that we talk about, but like the exception to the rule, that I was just always going to be stuck where I was and not feel like I could make progress, not feel like I could make change, not feel like I could achieve the things that I wanted to achieve. And I think even just that, like a lot of the things that I thought I wanted to achieve were like external and like aesthetics and that kind of thing. And so I think probably looking back, my mindset was not in the right place or in a healthy place.
Hmm.
But I probably wasn't as aware of that at that point. I think my main kind of feeling was just feeling a bit stuck and
Yeah.
like nothing was ever going to change.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's huge. And so for you, what was this point where you're like, yep, you know what? I mean, it can be a relatively big investment. It can be scary. What was it where you're like, this is the program. I'm going to take this leap of faith. I'm going to figure it out. Why this program? What made you decide on it?
Um, so I think probably you reaching out was a big part of that. I think like I have tried other programs before, but they typically were like either people advertising them or things that friends had tried and like shared that might have worked for them for a bit or not. But
Mhm.
again, a lot of those things were like aesthetic things, like
Yep.
the diets and Slimming World and those kind of things. But I think in you reaching out, I think it felt like someone actually cared beyond the money that was potentially going to be given. Like it was
Yes.
more than just getting money from me,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
that genuinely was a big part of it. Because I think a lot of those things can be like the root is just about making money.
Yes.
But that this certainly just from the offset never felt that way. So I think probably that gave me a bit of confidence in like my value as a person and like
Yeah.
your desire as much as my desire to change or to see me change as much as I desired it.
100%. I say that all the time. Like, honestly, like your success is my success. Like, I want so badly for you guys to do well, to feel good, to know that you're making progress, to know that change is possible. Like, that's the whole mission and purpose behind the program and what I do. So like I want you to win. Um, which is I'm glad that you felt that feels really, really good. And I'd love for you too, like you've mentioned it a little bit, like so I in the past I was really focused on aesthetics. So for you, when you joined and hopped into the program, what changed? Like what did your goal become?
So because I think quite early on, the early stages of the program are a lot around mindset and like
Mhm.
what beliefs do you currently hold, like what things have you tried and haven't worked. But so I think just that time to reevaluate, um, one, what my goals were, what I'd or where they'd come from. I
Mhm.
think even that was really, really helpful. Um, and just realizing that like none of the things, all like there were similarities in the level of like restriction, like having no foods or like, you know, forbidden foods or, you know, whatever you want to call those, and just that level of restriction and the all or nothing was like a really big thing for me. And I think not just in terms of eating, but like in probably
In
across my
every
mindset,
aspect of life.
every aspect. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think kind of coming to terms and realizing those things and just how unsuccessful it had been. And
Mhm.
not only did it not work, but it probably left me feeling um like a failure and like impacted how I felt about myself. So, you know, I wasn't seeing maybe physical changes, but then equally my mental self-talk became worse because I was like, well, look, there's just another thing that you failed at. So I think that reframing the goals and the aim, I think I sort of set like the physical side of it aside and was like,
Mhm.
right, if I'm going to do this, let's try and do it from from the inside out. And just realizing the impact of prioritizing like the internal, so like how I'm talking about myself, how I think about myself, and the impact that then has on the decisions that I make. Even like the like eating well has become more of a like self-care thing than it has been about achieving certain goals.
Oh, I love that. Like that's something that I want so badly for people to understand that like when we can make the habits and make the nourishing foods, like we're eating in a certain way out of self-care and self-love and self-respect, um, rather than like a place of self-loathing or punishment, like everything shifts and changes. And I want to just kind of dial in on what you said about the self-talk, because
Mm-hmm.
there was one particular win that just was, oh my gosh, like I remember it so much. Like it was one of the wins that you said at our check-in, and you're like, I'm feeling really body neutral. I can't remember the last time I had an overly negative thought or like critical thought about my body. And that used to be a daily occurrence. Could you share a little bit more about that experience for you?
Yeah, and I think, do you know, it's funny because it wasn't until we had that conversation around that time that I was like, oh yeah, actually, I don't remember. And it genuinely was that I don't remember the last time, but yeah. And I think it was like, I think it all came from that feeling like I'd failed at not
Mm.
achieving what I wanted to achieve. And that then became like a belief that I had about myself, that I was in this area of my life, like everything else is okay, but this area, I'm just never going to be what I want to be or see what I want to see. And so I think when I shifted the focus from the aesthetic side of things and did the work on um, so like one of the things is the gratitude journaling in the morning, and that became part of my morning routine, and
Mm-hmm.
literally just like two to 3 minutes, even some mornings it wasn't necessarily like a long time,
Yeah.
but just taking that time to do like three things that I was grateful for, and then having like um thought for the day, or like I think I started to make it like a week rather than changing it every day, but just to kind of change, um, like speak things over myself, but whether I was fully believing it or not,
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
it was what I was aspiring to think about myself. So like one of those was that my body is the least interesting thing about me, and that was one that kind of recircled I think a few times. I definitely came back to that one a few times, but just to be able to remind myself of that. Um, and then I think just gradually over time, then it just became less and less of a focus in the day, and yeah, then yeah, maybe about a month and a half in,
Oh, yeah.
we were having that conversation, and I was like, oh, hang on.
Seriously,
Yeah,
like 6 weeks and I'm not
yeah,
having negative thoughts about my body. Like,
yeah,
what? And
yeah,
I just like right there, like I want people to hear this, the power of being able to retrain your brain. Because that's exactly what you did. It's retraining your brain the way you see yourself, the way you see food. And it did come from this daily practice. I really do. Like we talk about the 3-2-1 journaling, having that gratitude and having that empowering mantra or affirmation. Like again, we can't stop thoughts, but we can replace them. And so I love that you were like, yep, this is my mantra. I didn't realize that is what you were doing every
mhm,
day, was putting in that mantra. um, that's so powerful.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, see, okay, I love it when people actually like do. By the way, I'm just gonna say, like, you did the work. Like you did everything to a T. You showed up every single week. You submitted your assignments every single week. You showed up and did our accountability posts. You were always on a group coaching call. Like you participated in every little bit of this whole program, and it freaking shows. Like I don't think I've like your results so fast, which
Mhm,
is so exciting. And I'd love for you, besides like not having that negative self-talk or feeling more comfortable in your skin, what are some other results that you've experienced since joining the program?
Um, yeah, it's hard. There's so many, but one of the big ones for sure is just, I think, kind of feeling freedom around food. I was someone who um, like I wasn't really a breakfast. Wouldn't have considered myself a breakfast person, and I would have said, "Oh, I'm just not hungry in the morning." But I think actually, in digging into that, it sort of stemmed from this idea of if I don't have calories at that time in the morning, I can save them for later, which then in turn led to like evening snacking and like having dinner, but then maybe come like 9:30 in the night, being like, oh, I'm hungry, like I want something else to
Mhm.
eat. And typically at that time of night it's never the like apple or the healthy foods that you're reaching for. So it would be like a bag of crisps or chips or chocolate or biscuits or just the unhealthy things. And so I think one of the things that I sort of started quite early on in this was just making time for breakfast. And I think even for the first couple of weeks or the first 2 weeks, maybe it wasn't like overly concerned with what that breakfast was. It was just, let's just get into the habit of having
Yep.
breakfast.
Yep.
And like being having like an afternoon snack was another thing. And it was amazing, like for me, it was really amazing how the difference that made, like
Mhm.
having an appropriate number of calories in the day throughout the day.
Yes.
Then like it wasn't, because I think before I just wasn't probably consuming enough, like
Yes.
so I was having dinner, like my evening meal, and then thinking that that should have been me. But actually, probably when if you were to add up, which I wasn't counting at that point, but like if you were to add up, I probably hadn't had enough calories throughout the day. So then, no wonder in an hour or two, I was feeling hungry. So yeah, so that was a really big thing for me, and that really made such a difference to not reaching for snacks and evening snacking.
Huge.
Yeah,
Thank you for trusting me on that one. Because I know a lot of us like we're like, oh, I'm just not a morning person. I just don't like
yeah,
breakfast. But
yeah.
no, I promise, guys, front load your calories more in the morning. You'd be so surprised what happens to any sort of cravings in the evening. Um, I love that. What are some other things that you started implementing that are have been really beneficial?
So yes, kind of tied in with that was the trying. So one of the things I would have done was to try and prevent the evening snacking as well. Would have been to not keep certain foods in the house, so particularly bars of chocolate and bags of crisps would have been the two things that I would have specifically tried not to have in the house. And so then it became, well, what if you were to have that with like your morning coffee or something? What if, like a small
Yeah.
bar of chocolate morning coffee, or like what if you were to have it like in the middle of the day? Which I think again for me it was like, if I try not to have it throughout the day, then I can have it treat at the end of the day. But then because I'm hungry, I want to eat more, and that was
Yep.
kind of like a vicious cycle in itself. So for me, kind of giving myself permission or the freedom to those foods were not restricted, and like so I think the jar is empty right now, but I've been able to have like a jar where I have like a selection of treats, like little bars of chocolate, and or bags of crisps, and I've been able to have them in the house and not feel like I need to finish the packet or need to like eat all of it. And that's not to say it's perfect. There are some days where
Yeah.
I eat the whole bag. But consistently, I would say that is something that is not causing me struggle anymore. It's not something that yeah, it's not a challenge anymore. They're just there. They're in the cupboard. I can have them whenever I want, but actually the want isn't there as often as I thought it would be. Yeah.
That's so cool. Sorry, I know that there's so many people that can't even fathom that.
Yeah.
Like,
And I was one of them for sure. So
I love that. Oh my God. And I know it's like you said, and I will say this to anybody, like one of the biggest things we do as an exercise is making peace with food. And that's like you said, allowing yourself to have the chocolate in the morning with your coffee, or making just normalizing it. So it's not just this like thing that I only have at night or whatever else. Um, I love, oh my gosh, these are such big things. What else? What else have you implemented that you think like would be really, really helpful for other people as well?
so I suppose kind of tied in with breakfast has been my morning, like morning and evening routine. So I mentioned about the gratitude journaling. And so one of the things that I tried to do or tried to do as part of my morning routine is like I typically will pre-prepare breakfast because it's to try and take away any friction of making that
Yes.
easy, making it as
Yes.
easy as possible. So if it's pre-prepared, so sometimes it's like overnight oats or breakfast wraps,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite. And so usually I'll do at least 3 or 4 days worth in advance and have that ready to go. And so when I go to whether it's defrost or heat up the breakfast, then while that's happening, I'll do my gratitude, the 3-2-1 journal. And that's just now become, it's like the kind of habit stacking, but that's become
Yes.
my routine in the morning, which even that has been really helpful in allowing me to kind of, because I think, and I don't know if this will ever change, I'm just not someone who wakes up and is like wide awake. Like I need that little bit of time to waking up. So yes. That's been a really helpful way to do that, because I don't even need to think about it now. I just know that there's something in the fridge or fridge ready for me to heat up for breakfast, so I can do that without being overly awake.
Yes.
And then get myself ready, but just having that little bit of time in the morning to kind of prepare myself for the day, or waking up for the day even,
Yes.
has been super helpful. And then in the evening, I think I probably started the evening routine a bit first, but
Yes.
I sort of
Yes.
been working on that, because I was someone who like just really struggled. Like I would have considered myself like an evening person, like snacking.
I
Like
remember this. You're like, I'm a
yeah,
night owl. Like I
yeah,
stay up
night owls for
late.
sure. For sure, and I can easily slip back into that. so I still so one of the things I do, I have an alarm set on my phone that goes at 9:30, and it just the alarm says what kind of person do I want to be right now.
Yes. Yes.
And so yes, so that goes off at 9:30. I try not to hit snooze on that one.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Yes.
And then I kind of, it took me a while to figure out, because I think at first when we talked about doing like an hour wind down before bed, I
Yes.
was like, what do I do for a whole hour? I don't know. Like, how do I fill an hour? Like, trying to be like not on screens and things like that. Like, what do I do for a whole hour? And so I sort of came, as I was working through that and kind of figuring out what suited me, I came up with a kind of 30 minutes,
30.
like 30 30, yeah, 30. So for the first 30 minutes, I do things like preparing my meals for the next day if I need to do that. Even like for some days I'll set out clothes for the next day if I know like there's something, maybe like an important meeting at work, or just a day that I know that would be helpful to have that done. Sometimes I'll do a bit of tidying up around the house if that needs done, so that the house is kind of fresh for the next day. Any little things like that would be the kind of first 30 minutes. And then I use the second 30 minutes more in kind of self-care capacity. So taking makeup off, kind of unwinding, doing a bit of skincare. Sometimes I'll listen to music, or sometimes I'll read for a little while. Sometimes I'll maybe make like a warm drink just to sit
Mhm.
and have that and enjoy that. But I try to keep it. So I've actually been listening to audiobooks recently because I find
Oh,
even that
cool.
it's a better way to like switch my mind off because I'm not having to concentrate in the same capacity, and it's easier to do that
Fair.
and drink my hot drink.
I
But
love
that's
that.
been super helpful, just having that kind of that distinction of the two parts to it. And then it just means that when I'm getting into bed, my mind has already had that time to unwind because I would have been someone who could easily have lain for an hour
Hmm.
when I get into bed because my brain's still processing the day and kind
Yep.
of like I've been go, and then all of a sudden I'm expecting myself to be able to fall asleep
Yes. Uh-huh.
and without that wind down time, and so that's been really huge.
Oh my gosh. No, I loved it when you coined this. Like, this was yours. We talk about it in the program. Like, all of the stuff that you're talking about are different aspects and modules in the program that we take you step by step through. But you were the one who kind of made it your own, which I absolutely loved. I had never heard of like, I'm not teaching 30-30, right? I was just saying, hey, we should have like an evening routine and a morning routine. Here's a menu of things. Let's make it your own. What's actually, works for you. But you're the one who made that 30-30. And I loved the concept of it. And again, like it's like you talking about meal planning is a form of self-care, right? Because it allows you to nourish your body. It makes it easy, obvious, convenient. It's right there. You know it's something you enjoy. It's super simple. You get into this routine. I love it. I love the 30-30 idea, which again, I will credit. It is yours. It was your idea. um oh man. So I hope people take that on and understand too. Like, it's these little things that you started doing, started eating breakfast, started waking up a little bit earlier, having that gratitude practice. But before we did the morning routine, we got your evening routine dialed in, because that's the thing. People keep doing it backwards. They're like, why do I keep snoozing? Why do I keep sleeping in? Why do I? Because like a good morning starts with a good evening, like starts with a good night. So I'm so proud of you for like continuing to stick to that. Um, and then that obviously for you, has that then helped with your overall energy? I know that was one of the big things that you had said, like, I'm getting these afternoon energy slumps throughout the day. How is your energy now throughout the day?
Yeah, on the whole, it's a lot more constant. There are some days where where it's tough to go back to work after lunchtime, but on the whole, yeah, on the whole, I'm not experiencing those slumps to the same degree, if not, like I would say less days. The majority of days, it's not the case that I have that afternoon slump, especially. Um, and I think even like one of the things as well that I noticed was that because I wasn't necessarily preparing that snack in the afternoon beforehand, was that like I would get home from work and be like, what can I eat now? Because I'm so
Oh,
hungry. So then I would, I'd be snacking while I'm preparing dinner because I was so hungry. So that was that having a kind of like 3 p.m. snack probably was something that was really helpful. Um,
I
and that
forgot.
for
Yeah. Can you talk about
yeah,
that? Like, so right now, what does your eating schedule for the most part look like? Like, what were the changes that you implemented?
yes. So I would do so breakfast somewhere around 7:30,
Mhm.
um, and then um, usually I would usually have like maybe a piece of fruit around, or like a light snack maybe around 11,
Mhm.
and then lunch would be around 1, and then I would have a like a and so the 11 o'clock snack's not always, that's just dependent on the day, if I feel like I need it, if I don't. But I have found a lot of value in making sure that I have like a good snack, so like a high protein, fat and fiber snack in my around that 3 p.m. time, and sort of
Yes.
between
Yeah.
2 and 4, because I find that, well, that was probably the time that I would start to feel that slump, and in my
Yep.
mind it's like I suppose I just didn't correlate it between like that potentially being hunger, because it didn't feel like it was that long from lunchtime.
Yep.
But actually, it's made such a difference in like prioritizing, particularly on days that I'm in the office. I find that super helpful, because I think sometimes when you're concentrating at a desk for
Yeah.
periods of time, you don't like it can be easy to ignore the hunger cues, and So for sure that's been so yeah, around that 3 p.m. And because I would have before, there's times where I might have stopped on the way home from work to pick something up because I just felt like I needed something to eat before I even
Yep,
got home.
yep,
Or like as soon as I was getting into the house, I was like grabbing a snack, whatever I could find. And again, usually it's not the choice that you would want to be making for food. It would be like a chocolate bar, or it would be just like a quick hit of energy.
yep,
Or it would be like nibbling as I was like preparing dinner,
yep,
like
yep,
eating the bit of cheese from the, or extra cheese or whatever, but
yeah.
snacking when I didn't need, or I needed the food, but that wasn't the right time to have been doing it. Had I had the snack in the afternoon, I wouldn't have felt like that insatiable hunger
Yeah,
at that point.
I love this though. Like I want people to hear this, that again, having this intentional snack between lunch and dinner makes such a difference. It's much more mindful. You're able to make a much more nourishing decision. You're not feeling that anxiety or feeling bad about eating all the ingredients and then you're already full by the time you're sitting at dinner. And it's not like this willpower thing. It's just literally I'm making sure I'm fueling my body appropriately, and just how that then impacts your energy, impacts the way that you're able to focus, the way you're able to make better decisions. And I promise that snack between lunch and dinner, guys, helps so much to curb cravings at night. It's crazy. um so I'm so glad that, like, again, you implement it. It's interesting, right? It's just like, oh, I just needed to eat more.
Mhm, mhm, for sure.
But eating more intentionally and
Yeah,
eating at like those consistent times, like your body does. That's how we retrain our hunger and fullness cues. But and you're right there, like it's that protein, fiber, fat. Like I
mhm.
And for you to now know, like, has that been helpful as far as like with meal planning? Is that easier for you right now? How has that been since joining the program?
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of prioritizing the protein, fiber, and fat for sure was like an easy way. I probably do it now a little bit more on autopilot because it is,
Yeah.
it feels like it's becoming ingrained now. But initially, that was super helpful because it didn't feel as overwhelming as being like, right, I need to get this many grams of this and this
Yeah.
many. It was just like, is there one of each of these? Is that on my plate? Is it colorful as well? Was something that I found quite helpful. Like, how can I add more color? So usually that comes in the form of vegetables or fruits.
Yep.
I found that super helpful. And I suppose tied in with that was the like intentional around eating. So making your meals an experience. So like sitting at a table to have breakfast, having or breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I travel a few days of the week for work, so I would have been eating. I would still sometimes eat in the car, but would have been eating in the car a lot, and that meant snacking in the car typically. Like I
Yep.
wouldn't stop properly, whereas now I would be quite conscious of, right, I'm going to sit for 20 minutes, have whatever it is that I've got with me, and just sit and eat it and actually make it like an experience of a meal, because that was something as well that was super helpful for me. Was I think sometimes when, especially when you're eating on the go, like
Yeah.
your body doesn't necessarily have time to process that you've eaten, so then you like eat way more than you really want because you're not really aware that you're eating.
Yeah.
That intentionality was super helpful too.
Oh,
um,
dude. And we say it all the time. Like, yes, we've just said, what we eat is like the protein, fiber, fat. But more importantly for us, what we focus on is why and how we're eating. And like for you, like I'm eating this afternoon snack because I don't want to be starving by the time I get to dinner. How am I eating it? I'm going to sit here and I'm going to give myself that 15, 20 minutes and make it an experience, eat it mindfully, actually taste and enjoy my food. Like that's massive. This is huge. Hope people listen what we are telling you. It seems simple, but it's these things really can just like transform your life and the way that you see food and the way you see yourself.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's been a big thing over the course of the whole time for me, is that, like I said about the all or nothing, is that like one little thing can actually make a big difference. And I think at the start I was like, my mindset would have been like, right, I want to do all the things now. I want to start all the habits now. But in terms of sustainability, that's never worked. So
Yep.
like, let's just start this week. The only thing I was focusing on was having breakfast.
Yes.
Like for the
Yes.
first week, I think that probably was about it. And maybe like getting in my daily movement.
Yep.
But that was about it. Like it was really small. And there was still a part of me that was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be it's going to be like a long like I'm never going to get there. But
It's actually a really
like
short
all,
amount of
yeah,
time. Like,
yeah, totally, yeah. But like I feel like my brain has been conditioned to being like that all or nothing, that like really restrictive, or and that like this is just not that, and it's worked.
ah, and like, and now you're sustaining it, which let's talk a little bit about like, so you just went on a trip to Zambia for work and you were gone. I think like, this whole month has just been a little bit chaotic for you.
Yeah.
And so things have interrupted your routine. You weren't home. You went on, whatever else. How are you feeling now with your habits, with your routine? Have you been able to maintain it? What does that look like?
Um, so I think like when I was away, I wasn't really in control of the foods that I was eating because we were staying with people. So you were provided with food, which is amazing, but at the same time, then it's not maybe the food that you would be choosing to eat. And so I think I didn't feel like stress or pressure around that, and I was just able to enjoy the food and enjoy being there, and not even like in a who cares kind of way, but just as in like this is fine, this is okay, like
Yes. Yes.
it's not going to like ruin the progress that I've made. It's just like normal living.
Yes, exactly.
So feeling,
This is
yeah,
an
feeling that
experience.
freedom. Yeah, yeah. So just feeling really free around that, and then and coming home, like not having really had a lot of my routines and for the 2 weeks that I was away, feeling the freedom to be like, right, I don't have to like jump back into everything all at once, but let's just go back to the like prepare breakfast, my evening routine. I mean, I still had my alarm going off, but the whole time I was away, I wasn't always able to be
9:30. All right, bye guys.
See you guys. But it's still there, so it meant that on nights that I could, then I was able to do it. And I think that's that all or nothing. Like it doesn't have to be that way. It's like
Exactly.
what's how does this fit into my life, and how can it support my life, not become the like be all and end all. And so yeah, giving myself the freedom to be able to just like build back up to those habits. But it's funny in that like it didn't feel like I had to build up too much, because it just felt like my body was craving those things after having that gap as well. So that was really interesting, I guess, because I haven't really had that sort of gap of time of not doing those things. There's maybe a day or two here or there over the couple of months, but not that kind of length of time. So it was interesting to feel like, oh, I'm really looking forward to doing these things again and getting
Which is awesome.
yeah,
Like again, like
yeah,
rather than like, oh my gosh, day one, I have to start all over. And like, because so many people I know, they'll like go on vacation and then they come back and they really struggle to get back into their routine or whatever they were doing before they left on vacation. And for you to be like, no, my body's craving this. This my routines and the things that I'm doing feel really good.
yeah,
Like
for sure.
that's huge.
Yeah,
And that oh, by the way, guys, if you enjoy it and it feels good, it's sustainable. Like, and for me, I always applaud and really appreciate, like you said, when you are not in that all or nothing, where something wasn't perfect. It wasn't the foods that you chose. It wasn't maybe the time you would have or the night routine you would have had, but that's okay. Like this is a moment, this is a season, a chapter, or whatever else. This isn't forever. And it doesn't mean that I failed. It's just a moment. And that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So I love this. And I love so for you, one of the why was this different? Or I guess I'd say, what was the biggest thing for you? Because we can give this advice to people, right? And what do you think was the most important factor for you to actually implement these things one bit at a time? Like, what was helpful for you?
Um, I think, I suppose, first of all, because you're making an investment in it, that's an element for me. And it was like, well, if I'm going to invest in this, then I might like I need to give it I
Yes.
need to give it my time and my energy. But then I think the part of the program is like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday check-in. And so at
Yeah.
first that probably felt a little bit overwhelming, because it was like, oh my god, like I feel like I've just done one and I have another one to do and then another one. But
Yep. Yep.
once you get into the rhythm of that, and there's an element of overlap, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just keeping you accountable for the goals that you've set,
Yes.
reminding yourself of those goals,
Yes.
and what steps are you going to take during this week to get closer to those goals. So I think even that, like those small steps, being reminded of that on a weekly basis and a couple of times a week, reminding yourself of what did I say this week that I was going to do that's going to get me a bit closer to this goal. That for sure was super helpful. And I think in seeing other people as well sharing what theirs have been, I think that's always encouraging, because you're like, oh, you get a notification that someone else has posted, so you're like, oh yeah, I need to do I need to do mine. And so I think those things were really helpful for me, in terms of committing and just going for it, with the assignments as well. I think I personally find it really helpful to share my assignments. I know maybe not everybody does that, but more from a point of view of like, it's keeping me accountable. So
Yes.
like, I'm
100%.
going to do this, I'm going to share it. So, and then I know that you see it and give a bit of feedback on that, and that was super super helpful for me. Just to know that, yeah, that I'm getting a bit of feedback on it and
Oh yeah.
encouragement on it and all of that. So I think those were the things for sure that really helped me to kind of dig in and keep going for it and keep making those changes, or those steps towards the changes that I wanted to be making.
I love that. And that's huge, right? I invested. I put skin in the game. I committed. This is something that I'm going to go and I'm actually doing. That's a huge part of the process, right? Again, guys, like this is we are giving you as much as we can of the step by step of the things that she's doing, but there's a huge difference between, like we say it all the time, like when you pay attention, and that's just part of it. Like when you have skin in the game, when it's something that really matters, you just show up that much more. You really pay attention to the steps that much more because you're committed to it and you've invested in it. And like you said, the accountability. So you've kind of mentioned two things, like the accountability, setting, like getting really clear and repeating over and over and over again, what is my goal? Which again, it's not the aesthetic goal, right? It was like, what is the internal, what are the things that are really important to me, what am I committing to as far as my habits or my big rocks, and then having that accountability at the end of the week. But then I think you also mentioned like that, having I'd love for you to talk about the community aspect for you, because I know for some people they get a little bit hesitant, um, because some of this stuff about food and body image, it can feel scary to talk about. It can feel embarrassing to talk about. And people can sometimes like, I'm not that group person. I'm not one like to raise my hand. What has been your experience in our Rediscover You Free community?
Really positive. Um, I think probably the bravery and vulnerability of some of the other community members has been really, it like encourages other people to be brave and vulnerable, right? So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think seeing other people feel safe to do that, like makes you feel a bit safer to do it as well. And I think just seeing, like, overwhelmingly knowing that actually you're not, as much as we are all unique, like
Yes.
issues are not unique, and
Yes.
almost everybody has an overlap in, their like body image and their eating struggles and their food struggles, whatever that is. Like I think, um, like certainly on the coaching calls that we do, or the group calls that we do, the like, if someone when someone asks a question, there's almost always everyone has like a, oh yeah, I relate to that. So
Yes.
I think that side of it is, it's like, well, actually you're not alone in this, but equally, like this person is finding a solution and they're finding like a path to change, or a path to, um, see their goal in this area. met,
Yes.
and well, so can you. And kind of letting go of that, feeling like, oh, I'm just not able to do that, but everybody else can, or they can, and it's all right for them. But I think just hearing other people talk about the challenges and seeing like, yes, I've succeeded in this year, but actually I'm still finding this really hard, or just hearing those little bits and pieces of everyone's journey, is really, really super helpful.
Yeah, no, I'll always say like the biggest pillar for us is safe space, like making sure that everyone feels really safe to express what's going on, or like you said, to be vulnerable, to share what's going on. And then also being able to see with the group coaching, what I love is there can be so much benefit that comes from watching someone else get coached.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Or, oh my gosh, like I actually really needed to hear that. And I wouldn't have even brought that up. And so for me, that collaboration has been really beautiful. And then we're still such a small enough, intimate group. We're able to kind of even chime in and like help each other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it's like, well, I think the most I've ever been on with is maybe 6 people. So it's
Yes.
a small enough group that it doesn't feel like intimidating to be like, oh, by the way, or to jump in on, or it doesn't feel like a crowd.
Yes. No, 100. And for me, like my big thing is I know that oftentimes, like if I'm not seeing, and I've done this even with you, if I'm not seeing you participate in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or I'm not seeing you on a coaching call, like I'll message you and just be like, hey, just checking in, how we doing? Because usually, not always, but usually if someone starts pulling back, it's usually from a place of shame, feeling like they didn't do their assignments or they didn't show up or they whatever else. And for me, like my big thing is like shame will not help you. Shame keeps us stuck. Shame keeps us isolated. And so we try and keep the group intimate enough that we notice when you're not there. And not in a bad way, but
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that was a huge help as well. Is that, like I said at the start, like it didn't feel like it was ever just about like, here's your money, here's the stuff, go for it, But like I think that only feeds into that, is that like it's like there's a genuine care and a genuine concern, and like, is there more that I can do to help? Is there something that you need to, those kind of things like are super, super helpful.
oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I know we've been on here. Like you have amazing tips for people. I really, really hope that they like are listening, soaking it in, and realizing what things they can implement. I'd love, I guess a couple more questions and then we'll kind of wrap up. Is there anything else that you would really love or think that someone needs to hear, or that would be really, really helpful for them on their journey to having food freedom and just feeling more confident in their skin?
I think like overall, it's just, I think one of the things I probably wasn't expecting was the impact it would have on like my life as a whole. I think I was sort of tunnel vision on it being just about food and just about eating and getting that right. And actually, it's like the impact that it's had. Like the impact it's had on like having those evening routines, getting like a good length of sleep, the impact that has on like my ability to do my job well, and even just like seeing myself make those changes, and like reach the small goals, then kind of it's like gives evidence, that isn't that the way you say it, like it gives evidence that you're someone who can make a change, and so knowing that then those things are things that you can do in other areas as well. Like one of the things I think I talked about was feeling confident and speaking up in a work environment, and so like that was something I didn't ever consider. Like I would never have considered back in February. That was not something that was like on my radar, or yeah, wasn't something I'd considered. So I think just that impact on the wider, like all parts of my life, I would say, like I think it's only been positive. And I think just given like being able to free up space in my mind now that some of those things are more automated, and like it just doesn't feel like it's so all consuming anymore, and so that has freed up space just to enjoy life more.
Yes, this is the whole goal. That right there, that is the whole purpose of this program. 100% how to help you become the healthiest version of you and still fully enjoy your life. Like, and I know for you, like, and we talk about this too in the program of like, what are your core values? Like, what are, and setting a vision for your life. And I know a big thing for you has been like deepening your relationships and your friendships and traveling more. And how have like, and has that been things that you've been implementing as well?
Yeah, I think a big part of it like has been that intentionality. So like there's probably those were elements of my life that were almost like on cruise control. Like I wasn't like it wasn't like I wasn't it's not like I wasn't seeing friends or having people over, but it was that I wasn't being intentional about it. And so like a couple of weeks, one of my goals was to like host people for dinner some night. And so just I think just having that space to think actually if this is something that's I'm saying is a core value, like connection and friendship, then what am I actually doing doing about it? So I think just having that awareness and becoming more intentional with that was super helpful, and just being aware of like, okay, so like I love traveling, it fills my tank, brings me a lot of joy, and so like how can I schedule that into my year that it can I can find that kind of recharging time in that, and even like maybe not like having to go abroad necessarily, but like how can I add a bit of like adventure into my weekend or into my evening sometime, like those kind of things that yeah, I think just overall bringing intentionality to these things that I'm saying that are things that I really value, but what am I doing to be intentional about living that way?
But I love this, but this is exactly why it's so important to me, is because again, if food and your weight is taking up all of your headspace, like we don't have the extra headspace to put intentionality into our relationships and to do the things that bring us joy. So I love it. I love that you've like, it was these things we built step by step by step. And then as you realize, oh, I'm capable of making change in this area. Oh, I'm capable of automating these things and creating systems. I can do this in other areas of my life as well. And so I love that you mentioned that this just translates. It's not just food and your body. It's every aspect of you. It really is a form of life coaching. And so it just makes me really, really happy that that's what you're obviously continuing to live out, because that's the point. Okay, as we wrap things up, Amy, I'd love to, like, what would you say to anyone who was on the fence or considering joining the program? What do you think that they need to know?
So I think it's just like I'm not a special case. Like what I've shared is not like a unique thing. And I know it's easy for someone to say that after like a period of time when they're not on the other side of it, because this is like a lifelong thing.
Yeah.
But when I'm a bit further down the line, it's easy to say like it's doable, but it genuinely is doable. And the things that the goals that you have are achievable. You might find that it changes along the way a little bit, which is a good thing too. But that it's totally worth the investment, and that like if you are considering it, then it's definitely something to have a conversation about with Kelsey for sure. But yeah, I think that that you are capable of doing whatever it is that you want to achieve. And this is just a really, really important tool or helpful tool to be able to do that.
I love it. Thank you. And like you said, like, again, everybody, you are a very special snowflake, you as an individual, but this struggle with food and body image is not. And we have the tools, we have the community, we have the support and accountability to help you get to that place way faster than trying to do this on your own. And we'd love to have you join us if that's something that you are ready to jump in, dive in, and know what's capable or what you're capable of and what's possible for you. Amy, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, for like trusting me. I'm somebody you like just met. Thank you, Carrie, for referring and sharing, everybody, because it's just been such an amazing gift to have you here. And I really appreciate you sharing everything with everyone today. It means a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.